Impact Texas, featuring stories and interviews with difference makers, those who make an impact right here in Dallas-Fort Worth, the state of Texas, the U.S., and all around the globe. Now for Impact Texas, here's Jon Griffin.
Hope your weekend is going great. I'm Jon Griffin. This is another edition of Impact Texas. You know I like featuring stories and interviews with those difference makers, those making that impact, whether it's globally or whether it's on your own city block. And I welcome your ideas and suggestions for future shows. My email address and phone number coming up at the close of this program. When I mentioned to my assistant that I was doing an Impact Texas interview on anesthesiology and admitted I didn't know a lot about the subject, she quickly replied, "If I need an anesthesiologist, I want them to put me down far enough where I don't feel any pain. But eventually later, I want to regain that feeling." I'm sure you all have heard that before, right?
Yes.
Yes. Which basically, in a nutshell, makes perfect and complete sense to everyone, except those who are actually anesthesiologists. Everyone knows the name of their doctor, perhaps their surgeon, but few know the hidden world of anesthesiology. Hopefully, after this edition of Impact Texas, we all will. As I welcome into studio Dr. Karen Rock from Metro Anesthesia Consultants. Great to meet you, Dr. Rock.
Thank you very much, John. Nice to meet you.
And Dr. Stephen Ellis, managing shareholder, one of the managing shareholders of Metro Anesthesia Consultants. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Ellis.
Thank you.
Dr. Ellis is an Aggie originally, but then you became a Red Raider.
Well, still an Aggie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought grad school or going towards your...
No, once an Aggie, always an Aggie. Sorry.
We got you for medical school. Very nice. Very nice. Married a girl from Post, so we caught up before the taping on that. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet a physician from UT Southwestern. Her specialty is lung cancer. And I always ask these questions. And I asked her, why lung cancer? And she said, well, at that time, my teachers said, no one's in that chosen specialty field. So I'm always intrigued to ask the same categorical question that I ask her. And I'll ask you, Dr. Rock, why anesthesiology?
I went to medical school to become a pediatrician.
Yep. Because you like kids.
Yes,
yeah.
But taking care of sick children is really not very fun. And I never really considered that. And luckily, as, a medical student, they have you rotate through different specialties, and I did not know much about anesthesiology at all. I knew their job was very important. I knew it was crucial to the surgery, but I knew nothing about it. And when I did the rotation, I just fell in love with it. I loved being in the operating room. I think it's exciting. I think it's really gets into do a lot of hands-on medicine and really take good care of patients.
So you're required to go through 3 specialties? Is that what you said?
More specialty. You go through all the major specialties: surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, OB/GYN, and part of that we did anesthesiology. It was only a week-long rotation, but it made an impact on me, and I thought that I felt like I really helped people, and my job really made a difference at the end of the day.
Most medical doctors, is that the way it happens? You go through all these specialties, and at that time something intrigues you. What about you, Dr. Ellis? Before you went through that, did you know you were going to be an anesthesiologist?
No, I didn't. Actually, I went through medical school to become an orthopedic surgeon.
Yes.
And it was during my first year of general surgery, because when you do orthopedics, your first year is in surgery. I realized I don't know if I want to do this surgery thing, but I enjoy being in the operating room. I enjoy the culture of the operating room. What can I do where I can still be there, do procedures, and have the acute care that I really enjoyed? And started to turn my attention to the person at the head of the table, who was the anesthesiologist. And it was the same thing in medical school. In fact, I don't even know if I had a rotation in anesthesiology. To be honest with you, because not all of the medical schools require it. Yeah. And so it's one of those, elective rotations that we call it. And it was during that first year of surgery, I was like, I need to do something else. Yeah. And that's where I fell into the anesthesia trap. Does
it require any additional training? I've always heard it requires a little more than maybe an orthopedic surgeon or maybe a pediatrician. Does it require more?
Yes, you have to do a year internship in either medicine or surgery or you can do kind of a transitional year where you rotate through different specialties, and then you do 3 years of anesthesiology after that. Whereas a pediatrician would do 1 year of pediatrics and then 2 additional years, so 3 years. Orthopedic surgeon can be a longer residency. It depends on what you do. Sometimes it's combined with general surgery, but it usually is a little bit longer than anesthesiology.
It's interesting because my nephew, who's graduating as the valedictorian of his class, Oklahoma University, he's going to OU, and he wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. What would you tell him?
I always tell my medical students, go into medical school with an open mind.
Yeah.
Don't go into medical school with blinders on, because you may find something that you love. And, if you're going in saying, well, I want to do orthopedic surgery, then you may not open up your mind to the other specialties that are out there, and you may not have that opportunity to find something else that you truly do love. I can understand where he's coming from. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon since I was 9 years old. So I had many years going in wanting to do that. And I think I kind of had those blinders on, and it took me until my first year of residency, my internship, to realize that, well, maybe, there is something else out there for me.
Our guests this week, Dr. Stephen Ellis and Dr. Karen Rock of Metro Anesthesia Consultants. You can check them out at metroanesthesia.com. Fact is, if you're like me, I've had 3 surgeries in my life. Never really had a relationship with my anesthesiologist, which isn't uncommon, I suppose. But the fact of the matter is, there's not a lot of public information out there about anesthesiology, exactly what it is. Oftentimes you don't get all the publicity that surgeons get, but your job is every bit as tough as well. It's a combination of science, chemistry, and medicine. Talk about what makes it unique and what you really love about what you do. And we'll start with you, Dr. Rock.
I think that the thing I enjoy most about it is that you could do the same surgery every day, but depending on the surgeon and depending on the patients, it changes completely. Considering the medical problems that a patient has, the medications that they're on, and how that impacts my ability to take care of the patient, and then considering the surgery that's being done. So I think I enjoy the variety. I enjoy that it's a challenge. It's not, there's not a formula that you can follow for every single patient and every single day. So it really keeps you on your toes, but that makes it very exciting for me and makes it very challenging and rewarding.
People listening right now, oftentimes they might be in an assembly line. They almost feel like they work in an assembly line. They're doing the same exact thing each and every day, but that gives you the variety that keeps the job fresh every day, right?
Yes, and really to tailor each anesthetic to each person, because there really is no blankets, cocktail or formula that you can use. Every patient is so unique and different, and I think that's what really makes it. I mean, even if I took out someone's, a gallbladder every single day, it would be different. It would not be the same every single case.
Same apply to you, Dr. Ellis?
It does. I find that anesthesiology gives me my ability to have instant gratification. We have one of the few specialties where when you do something, you get an immediate response. If you go to your internal medicine doctor and you have high blood pressure, well, they'll put you on a medication and they'll say, well, we'll watch this over the next month and we'll tweak it. Whereas in the operating room, we put someone to sleep and suddenly their blood pressure goes up and I treat it with my medication, I see an immediate response within, a few seconds to a couple of minutes. So, it's the acute portion of it that I find interesting. And, as Dr. Rock said, it's also every human being is different. So you never see the same thing over and over and over again. It will be slightly different or completely different depending on the patient. So that's very interesting.
Good friend of mine is an ER doc, and I think that's what he likes, the variety, and everything's different. And I'll have to ask him about the instant gratification portion of it, because you are instantly gratified. You treat them and then you make them better or prepare them for the next step and you move on, and his beeper isn't beeping all the time. Now, of course, you're working 24/7. You have to be on call to some degree. Are you actually serving a hospital of which you're working for, or contracted via Metro Anesthesia? I mean, you're on for a 24-hour period, or oftentimes are you called in to suddenly provide your services?
We have 54 people in our group, and
Yep.
we have contracts with 4 hospitals, and so we have a call schedule. So somebody is on call 24/7, 365 days a year. Whether you be on call for labor and delivery, if you're on call for labor and delivery at a couple of our hospitals, you're required to stay in-house for that 24 hours. But if you're on call for the operating room, then when your day's done, you go home. If you live within a certain time period for a 30-minute response time.
Sure.
And then if they have an emergency case like an appendectomy come in, someone has a perforated bowel or something like that, then they'll call you and they call the OR team and you come back in. And you're responsible until 7 a.m. that next day, and then you turn it over to the person who's next in line on the call schedule.
So right now, let's back up a little bit. Metro Anesthesia Consultants, which, by the way, has been a company formulated back in 1991, I believe, by 6 doctors originally, and now some 45 doctors making up the practice. Primarily, you're just servicing hospitals here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And again, how many is that?
4.
Okay.
Currently that we have contracts with. Now we do go to other hospitals that we don't have an exclusive contract with, which means that there's a difference. You have an exclusive contract, then it's what we call a closed staff, which means that it would be only Metro Anesthesia who covers that hospital. But some hospitals have what we call an open staff, which means that other groups will provide services to other surgeons in that hospital. Basically, we provide the hospital the anesthesia services, which, depending on what the services that the hospital provide, it changes. So for one hospital, we'll have an anesthesiologist available for labor and delivery to put in epidurals, do spinals for C-sections, and basically take care of laboring patients. And then we have, during the day, depending on how many operating rooms are running, we'll have various anesthesiologists in the operating room with a call person available 24/7, and then we'll also have what we call our backup person, who's usually available till about 7 p.m. because most hospitals only run one operating room after 7 p.m., depending on how big they are.
Sure,
but most
sure.
of the community hospitals will only run one. So we have someone available so that they can do their cases in the OR 24/7, 365 days of the year. So and there are multiple anesthetics that we can do, so those anesthesiologists will provide whatever service is required for that. And, we'll also provide anesthesiologists to do MRIs for patients who have high anxiety, who may need to be put to sleep for that. So we'll have outside location, as we call it, anesthesia services that we provide as well.
Gotcha. Going into break, going to ask you another question here. Can a person who's going into surgery specifically request an anesthesiologist? Could I say, I want Dr. Rock?
Yes, you absolutely
Okay.
can. It depends. The only caveat would be that anesthesiologist needs to be on staff at that facility that you want to work at. So provided that they are on staff at that facility, you can request. And then once you're in one of our facilities, if you came to one of the 4 hospitals, you could absolutely request which anesthesiologist you wanted to deliver your anesthetic.
You may have heard about nurse anesthetists. I knew I'd have a difficult time saying that. What's the difference between that chosen field endeavor and anesthesiologists? And I'm going to ask these doctors their opinions of this. Their professional opinions. See, you're already learning more about anesthesiology than you ever knew about. And that's what we're talking about today. This is Impact Texas, back with Dr. Ellis and Dr. Rock right after this.